In this lesson, we're looking at an aspect of beliefs. Beliefs are shortcuts that allow the brain to model and make predictions. They're another way that we'd make sense of the world quickly. They're an essential and important part of our evolutionary journey because they take the information from our senses, from perception and connection, and they help us to sort and organize it. If we think of these as buckets, we have these beliefs that fall into these different categories, and each one of our beliefs is this little bucket that we create. It's a way of sorting. So social norms are one way that we do that. Common sayings and proverbs, myths, parables, stereotypes, family beliefs and patterns, and also trauma decisions, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in this lesson. So some examples of each of these, when I talk about social norms, something like marriage is between a man and a woman. Well, that's certainly something that's evolved with the culture to be not true, but for a long time that has been a standard belief in our culture. Something like a common saying, everything happens for a reason. We hear these things over and over again, but when we say them, they're not just words, they're also beliefs that we're plugged into. Something like the hero's journey, there's some inherent beliefs that are part of that. The hero is always kind of alone on his journey, even though he meets guides and other beings, it's his single solo journey. Or stereotypes, women are more emotional than men. These are the basis of sexism and racism that's built into our institutions and our cultures. When we look at family beliefs, there's these things that we don't realize that we've been raised with that are kind of built into our DNA. You have to work hard for money, for example. Trauma decisions are a really important one. These are those moments in our lives when we've had something happen, and in that moment we make a decision, we make a choice. We decide on a belief based on the trauma. So an example would be life is not safe, I'm on my own, I can't rely on other people. These beliefs get embedded in our behavior, and they're at the foundation of the strategies we create around connection, expression, purpose, and growth. As much as these beliefs help us and create these shortcuts, they also cause issues and biases that influence our interpretation. A copy of this codex, as well as another guide to the 50 most common biases, is available in the lesson materials. One of the most common biases is confirmation bias. We look for evidence that reinforces our beliefs. If we think of each of these beliefs as having their own bucket, I'm too much, people are selfish, the world's not safe, each of these beliefs have a bucket that starts to collect evidence. Even though there can be all sorts of evidence around us that's contrary to that, our bucket attracts the evidence and gathers the evidence that satisfies and says, yes, this is true, this belief is real. When the bucket fills up, often we have an emotional reaction. We just can't take it, or we hit a rage button, or we get triggered in some way, and we have this big emotional release. Now, in the moment, that can feel very overwhelming and very big, but there's also a sense that can happen of, oh, I've now released all this emotion, and there's a sense of relief, and like, oh, that bucket is now empty. But the reality is the bucket is still there. It's still set up as a structure that's going to continue to attract evidence. We just go back to the gathering and filling up that bucket again until the next time that it gets released. So how do we actually get rid of the bucket? A big part of the 4 forces and the meta skills is about learning about the strategies and being able to identify and work with the different beliefs in order to untangle them. There are some ways that you can work with it even in the moment, though, and a big part of it is identifying what the belief is. Often this is enough. our subconscious, a lot of our beliefs are 90% of them are in our subconscious. So just bringing them to the fore can be enough for us to go, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was there, and to choose something else or to recognize it in the future. So one of the ways that you can identify the belief is, what are the thoughts you keep having? Is there a pattern that keeps showing up? Or is there a common theme to what triggers you? Is there emotion, when you're emotional, what amplifies it? What are the kind of same things that you're like, man, I'm always having this same sort of emotional response? What's underlying that? What is the belief at the core of that? This also goes back to the idea of, what are we really wanting? What is the force that's aligned with that? And using all the tools that we're developing in this course in order to be able to align it and actually get what we want. But there's also the technique of being able to look at the belief and go, okay, well, what's the belief that I would rather hold? What's the belief that is actually true, and what I want to actually cultivate? And consciously choosing to find evidence to support that new belief. Now, this isn't just being Pollyanna. This is, or, positive only thinking. This is about consciously choosing to say, no, this is not how I want to view the world. This is not the truth of who I am. I am going to choose a different way of being and a different way of engaging, and I'm going to choose a new belief. And then it's a matter of establishing a habit. And this is one of the benefits of working with purpose and structure, and this idea of order and habit and ritual. The idea of repeated action actually creates the energetic and the experience of this new belief. And what are the ways that you can reinforce this? What are the experiences that you can do that you can say, yeah, see, I now feel this new belief. This new belief is true, and being able to anchor it in your body. So experimenting with these different ways of working with the bucket, there's a lot of different techniques you can use. But the idea overall for this lesson is to be looking for, what is the underlying belief that's creating the structure, that's creating the pattern, and creating the reoccurring emotional patterns in your life, and working with the bucket.